Hello everyone, and welcome back to Daily English Voices. I won't give you glittery quotes or promises that disappear by dinner, because what you need is not a sugar rush for the brain. What you need is a calm, steady hand to help you take back the controls from the noise inside your head. Have you ever felt like your own mind was the loudest room in your life, full of echoes you didn't choose? You put on a smile and do your work and show up for people, but in the quiet moments a familiar tide rises: old fear, old regret, old comparisons, and you wonder, why can't I turn this off? Why am I heavy when my life looks fine? What's wrong with me? The honest answer is, nothing is wrong with you. What's wrong is the training you were given about how thoughts work and where feelings come from. Most of us were taught to wrestle with our minds like they're wild animals we must defeat. We were told to be positive, as if joy were a mask, to move on, as if pain were an enemy that disappears when ignored, to stop overthinking, as if the brain obeyed orders shouted at it in panic. Today we do something different. Today we update the instructions. Instead of wrestling with the storm, we learn how weather forms. Instead of yelling at the radio, we learn how to change the station. Instead of begging the mirror to be kinder, we change what we bring to it. This is not empty motivation, this is mental reprogramming done with patience and realism and practice you can repeat. And if you're learning English, that's a gift. Every sentence you hear and repeat today trains two things at once: your mindset and your language, so your heart becomes lighter even as your speech becomes clearer. Let's start where the trouble begins, not out there in events you can't control, but inside the invisible autopilot that steers you when you're tired, stressed, or scared. You do not consciously choose most of your reactions. Much of your day runs on patterns stored by your nervous system and reinforced by repetition. The voice that whispers, "You always mess things up," doesn't come from fresh logic. It's a recording built from 100 small moments you barely remember: the raised eyebrow when you were too loud, the laugh when you mispronounced a word, the look on a teacher's face when you got an answer wrong, the silence from someone you wished would text back, the night the money almost ran out, and the fear in the room taught you that safety could leave. Your mind stored these fragments to protect you. It built rules so you would avoid pain. But unexamined rules become cages. Think of Leon, 27, bright, funny, and loyal. Each time he tries something new, join a team, pitch an idea, ask someone out, his chest tightens and he hears a sentence that sounds like truth: "Don't do this, you will embarrass yourself." Leon thinks he is cautious by nature. He forgets that at 9 he read a story aloud, stumbled on a word, heard giggles, and watched the teacher do nothing to help. His body learned a rule: attention is danger. As an adult he repeats it without knowing. If Leon tries to debate that voice, "No, I'm fine, I'm brave, I'm ready," the voice grows louder because arguing is still attention. The wiser move is to notice without obedience: "Ah, an old rule just woke up, I don't have to follow it." When you begin to ask, "Where did I learn this sentence? Which moment is it borrowing its authority from?" you loosen the glue that makes old beliefs feel like facts. Tonight, if you do nothing else, write 3 recurring thoughts you meet every week, put each one on its own line, and beneath it write a suspected origin: whose face, which room, what year. You may not be exact, but even a guess opens a window: light enters, dust floats, and you see the pattern as a pattern, not as your identity. Once you see that your mind loves loops, you can stop blaming yourself for being trapped in one. A loop works like this: something small happens, a trigger that most people would forget in 5 minutes. You are left on read, you make a minor mistake, a friend seems distracted, someone online looks flawless, and the trigger wakes a stored belief: I'm not enough, I'm always behind, nobody really sees me, which stirs an emotion: shame, fear, anger, which sparks a reaction: isolate, doom scroll, rehearse imaginary arguments, drown in snacks, promise to start over on Monday. Then comes the aftermath: guilt for reacting, judgment for feeling, exhaustion that looks like laziness, and the guilt itself becomes the next trigger. The loop feeds itself. Your nervous system tries to protect you by repeating the familiar, even if the familiar hurts. Breaking the loop rarely works at the level of trigger or thought because both arrive fast, and resisting them gives them more fuel. You break the loop at the level of reaction, the only point where your hand can reach the lever. Imagine Hannah, a medical student who tells herself every exam decides her whole future. Each time she sits to study and a hard paragraph won't unlock, she hears, "You're not cut out for this," then she spirals into comparison, then her stomach twists, then she opens a short video for just 5 minutes, then an hour vanishes, then shame arrives with its heavy coat. One day she tries something gentle. When the old sentence arrives, she does not argue with it and she does not bow to it. She says softly, "Interesting thought, thanks brain," and she stands up, fills a glass with water, and sets a timer for 7 minutes of focused reading. The door cracks open, air moves. Not a miracle, a shift. The next day she does it again, and again, the loop still knocks, but the door no longer swings wide. If you want a tiny experiment you can win today, choose one loop you know by smell and plan a different reaction you'll reach for the moment the trigger taps you. 1 lap around the block, 15 conscious breaths, 1 paragraph read aloud, 1 friendly text sent, 1 glass of water sipped without scrolling. Don't aim for perfect, aim for interruption. Interruption is how a wheel loses momentum. Of course, loops don't survive on thoughts alone, they eat what you feed them. If your mind is a garden, your attention is water, and every tap you open fills some root system. Many of us keep a black mirror within 20 centimeters of our face for 6 hours a day, and we stare into it during the 2 periods when our minds are most programmable, the first half hour after waking and the last half hour before sleep. We say we're relaxing, we say we're staying informed, we say it's just noise we ignore, but the body doesn't ignore. It absorbs. The nervous system listens for threat and status and belonging. It notices faces without pores and vacations without worry and careers without doubt. It collects fragments that add up to an impossible standard and then it quietly asks, "Why are you not there yet?" This is not a sermon against technology, this is an invitation to treat your attention like oxygen. If you wouldn't drink from a dirty glass, stop pouring sludge into your head before sunrise and after sunset. Clean your feed the way you clean your kitchen, remove what rots you, keep what nourishes you. Follow voices that challenge you without shaming you, stories that build your sense of agency, music that calms or lifts, ideas that open your chest instead of tightening it. Do not try to quit chaos by force, replace it with quiet inputs you can actually choose. On your nightstand keep a notebook, a paper book, or a short playlist that steadies your breathing. In the morning let your first words be your own. Even one sentence whispered with intention is stronger than 50 shouted by strangers. You do not become peaceful by accident, you become peaceful by diet. Diet is not only what you consume, it's also what you hold. Dust settles in any room that is lived in, emotion settles in any mind that is human. You can be having an ordinary week and still gather micro-stresses that build layers, the email you postponed, the small misunderstanding you never clarified, the memory that woke at 3 a.m. and didn't leave, the kindness you rejected because you felt unworthy of it, the tiny jealousy you judged yourself for, the headline that lodged like a thorn. If you never open a window, the air grows stale. If you never open your inner window, your attention clogs with yesterday's air. Cleaning this space is a daily act, not a dramatic rescue after a breakdown. You don't need a complicated ritual, you need a gentle habit of noticing. Mid-afternoon, ask yourself out loud, what am I feeling right now and where is it in my body? Don't fix, label. Heat in the throat, tightness behind the eyes, jitter in the chest. At night, walk through your day for 3 minutes with your eyes closed. Watch yourself waking, eating, working, listen for the moments the emotional temperature rose or fell, name them the way you'd label colors in a painting, then breathe once for each moment and imagine placing it on a shelf that says, "I'll return if needed, but not tonight." Before sleep, speak to yourself the way you would to a child who carried a heavy backpack. "You did enough, you tried, you can rest now." The next morning, pick one small forgiveness to carry into your day: someone who cut you off, a version of you from last year, a sentence you wish you hadn't sent, and say, "I release you, I'm not spending today paying yesterday's bill." If you practice this kind of mental hygiene for a week, you will not become a different person, you will become a clearer version of yourself. Clarity is not luxury, it is oxygen for decision-making, presence for relationships, and space for joy to sit without being pushed off the couch. Now we come to a skill that sounds like semantics but functions like surgery, replacing thoughts instead of fighting them. The brain is a prediction machine, it completes patterns and privileges what is repeated. Tell it not to think of something and it must first build the image you forbid. Try this: do not picture a blue door. You saw it anyway. When panic arrives and you say, "Don't be anxious," your mind scans for anxiety to measure progress and finds more of it. When shame arrives and you say, "Stop it," your mind loops the evidence for why shame should stay. You cannot outshout a thought. You outgrow it by giving your attention a nearby branch to hold. If the radio in your head drops a song that hurts, you don't debate the lyrics, you change the station or you play a different song louder. Replacement is not lying to yourself, it is rebalancing the picture. When your head says, "I always ruin opportunities," you can answer, "I have ruined some and learned from them, and I am building a track record that looks different." When the voice says, "No one really sees me," you can answer, "Some people are not my audience and still I am learning how to be seen by the ones who are." When it whispers, "I'm too sensitive," you can say, "I feel deeply and that gives me data other people miss." These are not magic phrases, they are alternative interpretations your brain can accept without calling you a liar. If you write 3 such replacements on paper and repeat them in the morning out loud confidently, not perfectly, you shift what your nervous system expects to hear. Over time the default sentence softens because the pathway you reinforce gets faster. Think of it as upgrading your internal software. V1 said, "I can't," V2 says, "I'm learning," V3 says, "I've done harder things than this," V4 says, "I know what to do next," one small step at a time. When you practice replacement, aim for proximity, don't leap from "I'm terrified" to "I'm fearless," step to "I'm nervous and still moving." The brain respects bridges. But even bridges collapse if the person walking across is insulted all the way over. Many of us talk to ourselves with a harshness we would never aim at a stranger. If a 7-year-old came to you after spilling milk and said, "I ruin everything," would you nod and say, "Correct?" You would kneel, wipe the floor, and say, "Accidents happen, we learn, you're loved." Yet when you send the wrong file or misspeak in a meeting or feel jealousy when you wish you wouldn't, you unleash a voice that calls you names and sentences you to exile. That voice thinks it is keeping you in line, but it is sowing salt in the soil where motivation should grow. You become reluctant to try because trying offers the bully fresh ammunition, and slowly you start calling avoidance a personality trait. The antidote is simple, not easy. Speak to yourself the way you speak to people you're responsible for. You can even give the bully a name so you remember it is not your identity: old judge, static radio, Captain Doom, and when it starts rehearsing its favorite lines you can say, "Thank you for your concern, but we're doing things differently now." Stand in front of a mirror for 2 minutes a day, not to inspect flaws but to practice a new tone. "I'm still here, I'm doing my best, I forgive today's small mistakes, I'll try again." Compassion is not an excuse to repeat harmful patterns, it is fuel to build healthier ones. People who are kind to themselves when they fail do not become lazy, they become honest learners, because they can face what went wrong without drowning in shame. If you need a starting sentence, use this: I am allowed to be a beginner when I am new at something. We ask toddlers to stumble. We should offer ourselves the same grace when we enter new rooms. Sometimes the hardest work is not rewriting thoughts but changing environments that quietly return you to the version of yourself you're trying to outgrow. Triggers can be loud, an argument, a rejection, but they can also be soft and friendly: the group chat that lives on gossip and leaves you empty, the desk that faces the window where you watch other lives instead of building your own, the ringtone that once belonged to someone who brought chaos, the playlist that gifts you beautiful sorrow at a price your day cannot afford. If you remove a ticking clock, you notice how much tension it created only when the room goes silent. If you pause a weekly coffee with someone who drains you, you realize how much lighter Tuesday feels. This isn't about living in a bubble, it's about healing with a surgeon's care. Fresh wounds need clean air, boundaries are bandages. You are allowed to mute a friend for a season, you are allowed to stop visiting a place that makes your chest collapse, you are allowed to organize your phone so the first screen shows tools and the second screen hides traps, you are allowed to redesign your bedroom so it invites sleep instead of anxiety. Write a list titled, Things That Pull Me Backward, and next to each item write, why it hooks me and what small protection I can put in place. This is not bitterness, it is maintenance. When a plant wilts, we move it to better light, we do not lecture it into bloom. All this inner work would be incomplete without the dignity of meaning. You have lived through things. Some were your fault, many were not. Healing does not ask you to pretend it didn't happen, healing asks you to find a container that can hold the truth without spilling it into every future. There is an art that repairs broken pottery by filling cracks with gold. The bowl becomes more valuable not because it never broke, but because it did and was remade with care. You are allowed to be that bowl. Ask not only, why did this happen to me? But also, given that it did, who do I want to become next? Turn jealousy into a compass toward your unlived values, turn anger into the boundary you were taught not to draw, turn loneliness into a project that brings people together, turn anxiety into meticulous preparation, turn regret into a letter to your future self detailing what you will do differently. If you feel stuck, help one person who stands where you stood, tutor, listen, share a tool, write a thread. Pain multiplies in secrecy, it dissolves when brought into the simple sunlight of service. And let your identity be anchored to your survival, not your suffering. Instead of I was ruined by that year, try, I rebuilt after that year and now I trust my hands. That is not delusion, that is accurate accounting. Now let's thread this inner training into your English, because the best practice is the practice you will repeat. Use this episode as a daily workout. Listen once without stopping to catch rhythm and feeling, listen again and shadow line by line so your mouth learns the arc of sentences, then retell the story in your own words like you're speaking to a friend on a walk. Narrate what you felt, what you tried, what you'll test tonight, keep the language simple and the voice sincere. Fluency is not only vocabulary, it is breath, timing, and the courage to keep speaking when your tongue trips. Promise yourself 10 honest minutes a day. Whisper the replacement sentences you wrote, speak the mirror lines out loud, describe your loop and the interruption you'll use, say good night to yourself kindly in English. This is not only language study, this is identity rehearsal. The more you practice the voice that treats you with respect, the quieter the old chorus becomes, and your English improves because your nervous system stops labeling speech as danger. Before we close, let's summarize without lists, just a string you can hold. There is nothing wrong with you, there are patterns that need light, the loop loses power when you change your reaction, your attention is food, so feed your mind like you'd feed someone you love, clean your inner room daily with small rituals of noticing and release, replace thoughts instead of fighting them, step by step, bridge by bridge. Speak to yourself with gentleness so effort has a safe place to grow. Protect yourself from soft triggers that drain you, build meaning from hurt so your scars become instructions instead of prisons, and practice all of this in clear English so your voice becomes the instrument of your freedom. If you remember only one idea, let it be this: the weather inside you can change, not by force, but by consistent choices made with respect for how the brain learns repetition, small wins, and safer stories. You don't have to wait to feel brave to act, you act a little and your bravery catches up. You don't have to erase the past, you make room for the future until the past finds its proper size. You don't have to fix everything today, you do a little maintenance every day until the machine runs smoother and the road feels yours again. If this message met you at the right hour, if it made you breathe deeper, if you felt seen and steadied, keep going. Keep showing up for yourself when no one is watching, that is how a person changes. And if you want a place where you can return every day for practice that respects your mind and your time, join this channel. Here, English is not a test you pass, it is the instrument you tune so your real voice can be heard. We speak slowly and clearly because your nervous system deserves kindness, we tell the truth because your growth deserves honesty, we practice daily because your future deserves consistency. Subscribe, turn on the bell, and bring a notebook. Not because you need more information, but because you're ready to build a different relationship with your thoughts, and in the process, a different relationship with your words. Thank you for staying. Thank you for trying again. Thank you for choosing a better forecast. Step outside. Feel the air. Say one sentence out loud that belongs to the person you're becoming. Then take one small step that makes that sentence a little more true.